Hey, this is Tom from MVP Chess. Welcome back to my series on Bobby Fischer's seminal work, My 60 Memorable Games. In this video, we'll be analyzing game number 13 that Fischer played versus Gligoric, again, in the Canada Tournament 1959. You're not going to want to miss this awesome attack by Fischer. Before we jump into the analysis, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. You can subscribe to my channel by clicking the button in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. Thank you so much for your support. Really appreciate it. Okay, Fischer with the white pieces plays e4, of course. Best by test. Come on, get with it. c5, knight f3, knight c6, d4, cd, knight takes, knight f6, knight c3, and d6. So we have, as of now, a classical variation of the Sicilian on the board. This opening does have some transpositional qualities, though, which we'll look at in just a moment. So, as I've mentioned in other videos, Bishop g5 is a really nice way to attack the classical variation. This is known as the Richter-Rouser and is definitely the most testing. But Fischer really liked to play bishop c4 against the open Sicilian, which he goes for here. After bishop d7, Fischer drops the bishop back to b3, securing the piece. And after g6, f3, here is where, after bishop g7, let's say bishop e3, castles, queen d2, rook c8, castles queenside, there we go. We have a direct transposition to the Sicilian dragon. Okay, so Gligoric was definitely aware of that and I think was looking to take the game into unique, safer waters and just went for knight a5 here. So deviating and going after this light squared bishop. Also looking at a moment's notice, perhaps, to jump this knight in to c4 after black brings a rook to the half-open c-file. Bishop g5. Okay, usually in these Yugoslav English attack type structures, Yugoslav as it's called against the dragon, English as it's called against the Najdorf, usually the bishop's coming to e3. But we have kind of a unique position, so Fischer plays bishop g5 here. A little bit more active, maybe looking to provoke a weakening move on the king side. Bishop g7, queen d2, h6, okay. Now Fischer drops the bishop back to e3. Rook c8, castles queen side, and knight c4. Okay, so by far the most natural move, the best move in this position is to play bishop takes c4. Rook takes c4, and then ducking the king off the c-file and getting on with kingside counterplay. Okay, that's the normal way to proceed. And it's best because it preserves the dark squared bishop. And in these structures, okay, if white's going to launch a successful attack on the king side, very often white will look to play a timely bishop h6. Of course, he can't in this position, but we'll look to play bishop h6 or maybe bishop d4, depending on circumstances, and try to trade off these dark squared bishops, okay, removing one of black's key kingside defenders. But instead, after knight c4, Fischer plays a very controversial move, queen e2. Wow. So this just allows Gligoric to exchange all of his dark squared bishop. And because of that, Gligoric feels confident castling to the king side. I think he's feeling more secure doing this, certainly, than he would in a proper dragon, because his dragon bishop, this dark squared bishop, remains on the board. Okay, so it's definitely a formidable attacking piece, but it also is a great defender of the king side. Okay, if we envision this h-file opening up, which you know Fischer's going to look to do, right? Pry open the h-file, sack, mate. It's going to be much harder to deliver mate on the h-file with this dark square bishop protecting so many key squares. All right, well, Fischer gets on with his pawn storm, g4, and Gligoric begins some counterplay on the queen side. h4, e6. Gligoric plays e6 to blunt this bishop and also take control over the key d5 square. Fischer reroutes the knight to the king side, also applying pressure to the newly weakened d6 pawn, which Gligoric defends with rook c6, pawn to g5, and Gligoric plays knight h5, closing up the h file. Now, because of the presence of this dark square bishop, a lot of you are probably looking at this exchange sacrifice, rook takes h5. And I'll let you analyze that on your own, but because of the presence of this dark square bishop, Fischer is just not ready to play this exchange sacrifice, okay? Because if after, say, these sample moves, king b1, it's important to get off the c file here. Knight takes, we can have an exchange sacrifice here. Let's say queen takes, and okay, this is just a sample variation, but we could definitely see this on the board if Fischer had sacked the exchange on h5, where all of white's counterplay is gone and black's actually up a pawn here and stands a little bit better, although it'll probably end in a draw. So Fischer realizes he's not ready for this just yet, especially while this dark squared bishop remains on the board. So he plays f4, rook fc8. Okay, Gligoric doubles on the half-open c file. Fischer ducks his king to b1, always a good idea, especially when there's a rook on the c file and also in certain lines to secure the pawn on a2. Always play king b1 when you castle long. It's really important. Queen b6 here. Gligoric offers the exchange of queens, which Fischer declines. He's playing white. This is a candidates tournament. He's looking to win. And of course, he's got a nice attacking position with an open h file. Okay, it's not the type of crushing attack that he's so common in cashing in on in the dragon, but still a position where you want to keep queens on the board and keep dynamic chances alive. Rook c5, and Fischer brings the queen back to d3, pressuring this weak pawn on d6. Now, Gligoric plays, I mean, it's just a blunder. I mean, when I saw this move, I was just absolutely astonished that somebody of Gligoric's talent, someone of his skill would play this move. But when I thought about it, you know, from an historical perspective, this is 1959, okay? These players don't have computers to aid them in opening preparation. You know, we just came out of a long period of Capablanca and Alekhaine's reign where the Queen's Gambit was in vogue. You know, a lot of these open Sicilian sharp positions hadn't been worked out yet in excruciating detail. So I think the modern player now at any level would just absolutely cringe at Gligoric's next move, just like I did. He played bishop takes c3 in this position. Wow. And after knight takes c3, we see his justification. He did all of this to grab the pawn on f4. Okay, this is a race position. Every tempo counts. Pawns are immaterial. They're immaterial. Okay, it is much more important for both sides to be opening lines, opening files, and also exchanging off key defenders of their opponent's castled position. Okay, and the bishop on g7 was incredibly important for the defense of the king. After queen f3, Gligoric retreats the knight to h5. e5 doesn't really help matters. After knight e2, Fischer can just remove this knight from the board, and it's really only going to delay the inevitable. But I'll turn it over to you in this position. After knight h5, it's white to play. White is completely winning in this position. What did Fischer play? Pause your videos. Fischer states in his annotations that He's played this move so often that he should apply for a patent on the move. Rook takes h5, the exchange sack. Boom, great move. And now it makes perfect sense, okay? With the bishop still on the board, earlier we had considered this move, but it was too premature. Now that this bishop has been exchanged for that measly knight on c3, it makes all the difference. Black's king side is a train wreck. After g takes h5, queen takes h5, bishop e8, queen h6. Nice move by Fischer, bringing the queen off the 5th rank, okay, mobilizing this pawn. Gligoric, in desperation, plays rook takes c3, which is a very common exchange sacrifice for black in these type of structures, but here it's just too little too late. After rook takes, Fischer finds a great move to bring the game to a swift conclusion. So I'll turn it over to you for the last time. White to play and win. What did Fischer play in this position? Pause your videos. Okay, so congratulations if you found this move. If you watched my entire series so far, and if you hadn't, what's wrong with you? Go back and start at video number 1. You'll recall from game 2, Slaying the Dragon versus Bent Larsen, that Fischer opened up black's king side with a really thematic pawn thrust. Pawn to g6. Boom. Great move. Congrats if you found that. Just prying open the G file or the F file, and also unleashing this strong bishop on b3, just like Fischer did against Larsen. After f takes g6, rook h1, we can see how sorely black is missing the dark squared bishop in this position. Queen d4, Gligoric tries to shore up these weakened dark squares, but this is to no avail. After queen h7, Gligoric resigned. Of course, king f8 is forced, and then black is just walking into a bazooka on the f file. So this game is finished. Wow. So interesting novelty from Fischer, giving up that dark squared bishop. I don't particularly think it was sound, and I think modern theory would certainly frown upon it. But it certainly got Gligoric to think on his own, and he just wasn't able to appreciate the strength of his dark square bishop. I mean, giving up this important attacker and important defender for a measly pawn on the king side is just a positional and strategic catastrophe. So it's not surprising that in a matter of moves, Fischer was able to crush his opponent from there on out. So if you find yourself in this position, okay, with white, look to exchange off those bishops, okay? It's really important for your attack. And for black, if you can, try to preserve it. Sometimes even at the cost of giving up an exchange, this can be a good idea. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on your notifications. You're not going to want to miss my next installment, which is game number 14. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you soon.